What's up everybody, it's Kiyodo and welcome back to another SMT Dx2 video. Today we're going to be going over the new patch notes for version 2.4.0. So this is quite a big patch because we're going to be seeing some huge changes in this game, especially some upgrades to some weaker demons. They didn't just directly buff them, they just kind of wanted to make us work for it in a way. And we'll be explaining that in just a little bit. I did look at this earlier and prepared a little bit of something, so I'll be going fast over some parts and I'll be going into more detail on the parts that are just more important. So first off, we're getting a new demon and it's going to be a 5-star for multi-fusion. So it's going to be the second 5-star in multi-fusion after Alilot. And it's bringing us the transferable skill Merciless Blow. So Merciless Blow gives plus 20% to your damage when hitting a weak point. So that could be really good for taking advantage of your opponent if they leave those open, especially if you're like a defense unit. Then a lot of offense units kind of just leave those open. So you could probably catch people off guard with that, and you will have to transfer it, but maybe you had an open skill slot for something. But in any case, you also get the unique skill Magnimator, or Magnamator, I'm not really sure, but in any case, who cares? Magnamator / Modder. While the demon with the skill is alive, all party members will receive the following effects. Just a little bit of increase to your fire damage and to healing skill effectiveness, which is kind of worthless in a way, and plus 20 magic, I mean, like, okay. That's a weird upgrade, but sure, it's not that good. So, stats-wise, I guess we'll take a look. HP is okay here. Little bit over 1,000, so it's relatively tanky, but nothing too crazy. Like having 200 plus of a stat is really good too for magic, so that's going to be your mage. Weakness in ice, has the drain there, so that may be good for Rama if we get some AoE fire pierce kind of unit, but we'll see how that goes. I'm not really sure what we're going to be getting, but we'll see when that comes out, I guess. So the main thing for this patch is Spirit Merge. Now, there's a lot of questions about Spirit Merge, and I looked into it myself. We couldn't really get like any confirmation on this, and it might be changed before the patch actually releases, but if it does not, this is how I see it. So you're going to have to complete some story quests, chapter 1 through 7, not a big deal, but basically with this Spirit Merge, you're going to be able to sacrifice copies of a demon, and that will give you these like spirits, or spiritizing them in a way, which will allow you to upgrade your units, giving them stats like this. So every step you get like plus 25 HP. There's gonna be 10 steps, so a max of 250. And when you complete 10 steps, it's going to give you the completion bonus, which will be like for Yoshi, plus 15% Fizz hit rate on the first panel. And then the next one, plus 5 max MP. Good for PvE. I don't understand why they'd put that for PvP, so probably not going to be used there. But you do get a whole plus 25% extra damage to attacks that hit all or random allies, and that's pretty crazy. Second step, just a note too, Fizz attack plus 10 per panel, so up to 100. So basically, this upgrade system is going to be very important, especially if you're using them PvE or PvP or both in whatever way. So I'll be explaining which ones are good for both too. In any case, there are ways to get these spirits or points or whatever to upgrade them through steps. There are 10 steps, 3 panels. To get the third panel, you have to have panels 1 and 2 done, because the third panel just happens to be the best, you know, of the skills usually, I'd like to say. So looking into this, there's going to be 2 ways to upgrade these things. You're gonna have to either sacrifice them with your copies and spiritize in a sense, or you're gonna have Advent quests, and I'll be going over that after we talk about all the demon changes. So Advent quests are going to be basically events to get free spirit points, so you don't have to sacrifice copies, because, you know, if you're an older player and you sold your good copies of things for karma, then you would be like, what the hell? What am I gonna do now? I just wasted all that stuff when I could have just made a crazy good unit. So yeah, you're going to be able to get these whenever they have the Advent Quest events. I guess that's just their way of trying to make up for it in a way, but it doesn't help the veterans, it kind of helps us everybody. So that's fine, I guess. But anyway, let's go over these demon upgrades, and we just did Yoshi's. He's going to be okay. You know, like overall, I think his damage is going to be a little bit better. He doesn't really need the HP, but he can. Fizz hit rate's kind of really nice for him. Having 15 MP I guess that allows you to put on some different brands on, but it's still kind of like unnecessary. You don't really need that much mana, honestly. And having the extra damage is just nice overall. He's just a good support demon unit, really, or just for farming stuff. So yeah, he'll just be a better farming unit, if anything. Just PvE, really, because you can't really do much for PvP. I mean, he does do a lot of damage in general, but it doesn't compete with what we have currently. So next up, looking at Trumpeter. Now, this is pretty big. I guess he's the only one that's going to get this buff for the third panel, but let's just go in order here. So first panel, looking at Trumpeters, 15% chance extra to inflict status ailments. That's nice. You didn't really need it, but you know, that's going to help some people. The mute is very powerful, which may allow you to put more into like your magic stat instead of your ailment infliction percent. But you still probably want to put a lot into ailment infliction percent as long as you're using him for the mute for that reason. If you're not, then whatever, because the next two parts are actually going to be really good for a Trumpeter that doesn't have to rely on mute. So looking at panel 2 here, activating the chain effect when using concentrate removes barriers. That's pretty crazy as is. Like, you don't even need panel 3. Panel 2 is pretty nice because that used to be one of the things that Trumpeter would just do wrong, is use concentrate on PvP when going first, and that would do nothing for you. But since Trumpeter is a fast unit, you can use him as a barrier breaker and then put him with your other ailment units, and maybe that should actually work out, and that could be really cool. You might need some like lead brands or something, but that could be something that he could do correctly finally. So maybe Divine plus lead brands, new Trumpeter build? Who knows? In any case, that gives him extra magic attack on step 2, so that's nice. But step 3, reducing the cost of concentrate by 2 MP. So it costs 6, would making it cost 4. And if you have Divine brands, you can just concentrate every turn. I mean, like, it's not like you would, but you can. See, that's like a really crazy point here, because that allows your concentrate apocalypse combo to just work at 7 MP, or really like 3 MP. Then you get your Trumpeter turn, makes it 7, and then you know what I mean. So that is pretty crazy for getting out a bunch of damage. You do have to go twice with that Trumpeter, so it still has to be like a fast unit, probably going first or second. But if you're using him for the barrier break, he's probably going to be going first or second. So that could probably work out really well. I think it's a big buff. Moving on to Alice. Now, Alice here is probably the biggest buff out of all the units. I feel like this makes Alice a top tier unit. It is really crazy what they're doing to her. I'm not sure why they're giving her increased usage of Diaphragmy, because Diaphragmy can't miss, unlike Masakato's Occult Flash. So yeah, new offense top tier, because defense is kind of weird if you have Dark Pierce. It doesn't really like work with the AI. It just uses Mamadoon instead of Diaphragmy. So that's not good, not what you're trying to do, unless you don't have Dark Pierce, but then you won't be hitting the important units with Diaphragmy because it wouldn't work. Yeah, that could be a problem. So, in any case, looking at the first panel here, plus 15% to dark damage, whatever. I mean, she already has quite a bit of damage. You don't really need extra, but you can, sure. Panel 2, reduces the cost of dark skills by 1 MP. So, if you max out Diaphragmy, it goes from 7 to 6 MP. Now, if you decrease all of your dark skills by 1 MP again, Diaphragmy only costs 5 MP. That's really dumb, because if Alice just happens to go first on a team and then, you know, she gets 2 turns, she can just use Diaphragmy twice before your opponent even gets a chance to do anything. That seems really, really broken. Does anybody else like feel that same way? Because I feel that may be a little bit dangerous to have. But sure, why not? I mean, they gave it to her. So yeah. Alice is a new top tier, because that's insane. Because the third panel gives you 2 more uses of Diaphragmy. Like, that's so crazy. You get 3 uses of that. You pretty much hit the unit which has Drain Pierce or Repel Pierce, and then you hit the unit that had the Drain or Repel Dark. Easy. You just like win on turn 1. Or I guess you could try some new things out. People will probably figure out a new meta with Alice, because she seems like she's going to have some crazy potential, and people are going to have to build around her instead of Masakato, maybe. Who knows? Moving on to Metatron. So he's kind of got like a overall bonus here. It's like nothing too special. I'll just go over this one really quickly. And honestly, last few, nothing too special. There's one in the middle here. But first, Metatron, panel 1 reduces the cost of all mighty skills by 1 MP, so you can spam your skills a little bit more. That could be good if you use them all, but sometimes he uses the wrong skills, and even though he has infinite chakra to kind of back that up, you might not get the skill that you want out of him because of the AI. We'll see how that works out with him. But overall, having that decreased by 1 is kind of nice. You could probably build him with some other almighty stuff now. In any case, panel 2, minus 20% to magic damage received, so he's kind of going to be like a magic tank. It's kind of nice for him. He gets extra HP and magic attack, so he's still more overall magic tank plus, you know, still a DPS mage in a way, but not really. He's just too overall to be anything great, in my opinion still. Even panel 3, given plus 20% to your magic damage. That's like a better butcher, but yeah, he doesn't do that much, so that kind of just makes him a little bit better. You know, when your base stats are still too low to make you that good, adding 20%, especially if you're doing percentages, having a low base is not going to help you that much. You know what I mean? So he's okay. Just like a whatever buff. I don't think it's going to be making people use Metatron all that much more, though he might be good in some like niche circumstances. Moving on to Michael here. So a lot of people thought Michael was going to be really crazy. He does do quite a bit of damage as is, but the fact that he has a multi-hit light skill, you still need to have the light pierce on him, which takes up a slot, and then you may need to cover weaknesses, but if not, then you're going to have to deal with that another way, and maybe put some other things on here, maybe butcher or whatever. So panel 1, plus 15% damage to attacks that attack all our random allies. That's good, you know, that's what his main thing is to do. Then panel 2, minus 50% to light damage received. That's like pretty crazy, I guess, if you're fighting light types. Not sure why you're fighting light with Michael, but yeah, that's in there. Panel 3, though, increasing your light damage by 25% is pretty big for him. On top of getting the increased damage to the all-in random attacks, it's really nice. Yeah, I think that gives Michael a much better role as a DPSer, but it still doesn't make him that great. Maybe he's still good in some niche picks like Brands of Sin or something. Now, moving on to Seth. This is one of those units that I feel like did get a very nice buff to it. So people are thinking tank Seth, they're thinking they just like crit pass Seth with a bunch of damage, DPS Seth. A lot of things do work, even more so now because of this, especially if you're using like Divine Brand Seth, because we'll go over that. Now, plus 15% to your physical damage, that's making Quaz do a lot more. Quaz was already really powerful with a high crit rate and a high base luck on Seth himself. So that's really nice. That's going to help you out as a DPSer. You're still going to need Fizz Pierce, and you still might need to cover your weakness, but that's like whatever. You might use like Assassin or Master Assassin with that. We'll see how that works out. In any case, increasing the HP by 50%. That's huge, though. See, that's something that does make tanky Seth a possibility, and that is a little bit more reliable as like a kind of like tanky, self-healing DPSer, Fizz DPSer especially, which is in a way like a Paladin kind of class, you know? It tanks, it heals itself, it deals damage. That seems like a Paladin to me. But also on panel 3, you're reducing the cost of quads by 2 whole MP. Now, quads costed 6. So when you make it 4, you can just spam it every turn with Divine Brands, and you pretty much have it in the bag. You go for crit, or I guess Fizz damage, because you can crit pretty easily on your own. Then you can just style on people, keep healing up, and if they can't kill you in just one shot, maybe you just heal it all back. Who knows? Or at least you'll crit pass, which is really nice. So, Vile Seth as a crit passing unit. Very possible. Even tanky, because you don't really need to build him for damage if you're building him for crit pass healing. Could be nice. We'll see if Curse ever becomes a thing in the meta. Now, moving on to Thor here. Thor did get a considerable buff against other lightning type counter picks, like Nero per se, but I can't say he's that great. I mean, they did give him a similar damage buff to Michael. It's the same thing as Michael's damage buff, except for elect damage. So yeah, panel 1, plus 50% damage to AoEs. Panel 2, minus 50% to elect damage. Big whoop, whatever. Panel 3, plus 25% to elect damage, you know, better, butcher, and yeah. Really solid to his DPS. He's going to be a better DPSer now. You may choose Thor over other things because Mjolnir is a somewhat spammable skill, and especially against single targets, it just destroys them. So having the extra damage, pretty big deal. Moving on to Surt. Surt is already good without the buffs, in my opinion, but now that you can just throw Fire Pierce on him, you can go with Intimidating Stance, and you can increase your single target damage, which I don't know why they're doing that, but sure. I mean, just give Surt more kill power to assure that you one-shot those tanks. Reducing the fire damage, maybe that'll be viable when we have an AoE fire piercing unit, which I suppose is going to come soon because they're preparing a lot for mitigating fire damage, you know what I mean? And then having the second step here, this is a little different than the other ones, is that you get a split between Fizz and Magic. I don't like how they're doing that with Surt. Like, I feel like they should just make him just a mage or just a Fizz attacker because having hybrids just doesn't really work too well in this game. And you don't want to have to build both stats on there. And I know it's kind of nice, but you're most likely going to want, like, Mag attack primaries and Fizz attack secondaries, like, or sorry, tertiaries, if anything. And even then, so having those tertiaries just doesn't really help if your base Fizz damage isn't as high as your base magic. So it's like not building as much as you could. It's kind of where you throw your kind of half junky brands onto Surt. But having the third step here, increasing the damage to plus 25%. So that's huge, right? Everybody's getting 15 plus 25% for the DPSers. So the thing with giving that to Surt, he can put Assassin and Master Assassin on, or like Fire Amp really, so like Master Assassin and Fire Amp to give Ragnarok just one-shotting abilities on tanks, and maybe going through Fire Pierce, it could still one-shot some of the squishier things. This is, I don't know, this seems really insane. We're gonna have to see how that works because Surt seems like the unit to put your Master Assassin and or Fire Amp or just regular assassin or something on. So yeah, could be big. I'm waiting to see how Surt's going to turn out. Maybe he'll be like at least a high tier, if anything. Probably not a top tier, but a high tier. Amaterasu. Moving on to this person. Get something special in panel 3. So let's just go through it. Panel 1 gives you plus 15% to fire damage. That's like whatever. I mean, Amaterasu's not really a attack mage. But you can, I mean, as a support mage, Amaterasu is amazing, and you kind of waste all your mana doing that. So you probably don't want to use the fire damage so much, but sure, whatever. And decreasing fire damage received, sure, tankier against some niche picks. I'm not really sure what you're going to be fighting that's going through Repel Fire, but sure. And after that, as long as this demon is alive, minus 20% of fire damage received by all allies. Now that is something particularly nice. I like that a lot because that allows everybody on your team to not get destroyed by some sort of like Kiwami Surt or whatever, you know what I mean? A lot of big damage mitigated. And as an AoE kind of thing, like that would just really helps a lot. I also want to note that on panel 2 for the step bonus, you're getting Mag Defense instead of like Mag Attack or something. And I think that's kind of nice too because she is more of like a tanky support unit in this role. That fits really nicely. Now, moving on to the last that they're giving for upgrades, at least for now, because of course they need to buff other things like Shiva and Lucifer. Let's take a look at this. So panel 1, given the same thing that Trumpeter got, plus 15% chance to inflict status ailments. That's actually really necessary on Lilith more than Trumpeter because Trumpeter has a slightly better like rate of infliction, especially because of Luckstat and this, you know, based ailment percentage. But that's kind of necessary because we'll move on to that later. Panel 2 giving minus 50% to dark damage. Whatever. I mean, because Alice is going to be more meta now, there's a possibility that Lilith will be a good counter pick. And here's the thing. So when enemies are charmed, you get the chain effect of 30% chance to inflict bind on all enemies. So if any enemy is charmed, like one of them, if you hit them at all with that, with your inflict chance being upgraded, both effects, charm and bind, have a chance to just cast on both, right? So you can just AoE charm or just like single charm, and then you'll AoE bind for free. So, here's the thing with that though. I know a lot of people are covering just null charm, And you could AoE to try to hit like one of the other ones and then hit the nil bind. I mean, hit the bind rather. But there are units that are covering with nil bind along with null charm, especially if they're going like yellow Ashera for the silent prayer. They might not be covering null mute in the meta, because why would you do that? You might as well just go for Inferno Mask, Hellish Mask at that point. But yeah, that's the problem though. When people have null charm and null bind, or they just have Dai Sojo or Kinmanman, then Lilith's buff doesn't really do that much. It's probably better against the players that don't cover ailments. But nowadays, since the server merge, I bet you a lot of the Japanese and Chinese players from those servers are learning to cover those a little bit more, because you know how Global was. Global had a lot more ailments in the meta, and when we brought that over, they had to kind of learn from us, you know? They had to go back to the meta of ailments that they were in before, and I hope to see that kind of effect where we're going back into some other stuff, so we can have like some DPS meta going on instead of this insta-kill tanky revive stuff that we've been having forever. Am I right? So in any case, the buffs, pretty big for like 3 or 4 of them or so, and then like kind of decent for the rest of them, and yeah. I'm happy that this is something that they're actually working on, because some units like Barong especially need to get buffed like now. They're pretty bad, right? And there's no reason to pull them. So we'll have to see how that works out. In any case, moving on to the Advent Quest. So this is how you're going to get spirit points or whatever spirits without having to sacrifice your demons. So they're going to be having the like normal Advent quests, and then there's going to be the Mayhem Advent quests. So the thing is, normal Mayhem, so you can see here, Mayhem's going to give you 4 times, but it's going to be insanely harder. You get no brand effects, and you also don't get your DX2 skill effects, so that's kind of a huge deal. The no continues, no use of item thing is kind of weird. We're not sure if you only get 1 chance, or if you get as many tries until you complete it, but they're going to be having these like every so often, and apparently the Mayhem quests are going to be extremely hard. But of course you need the spirits, and it's giving you 4 times, so you're probably going to want to try that if you can, maybe build for it. And looking at the first 3 that they're popping out, Alice coming first. Yeah, Alice top tier, and they're bringing her first. That is going to be insane. And then Yoshi, I mean, better for your PvE, so you're getting your brand farming a little bit quicker, I guess. Then Trumpeter, so that's going to change the meta maybe, so you see more Trumpeters on like defense. I don't know how he's gonna work on defense. He's like decent at evading, so against the Fizz meta, that could be really nice. Having the mute on there sticks for quite a while, so if you get hit by Apocalypse and the concentrate plus a barrier break thing, that could be really deadly. You don't want to last for 2 to 3 turns with Trumpeter on the field, especially if he's buffed. So yeah, we're gonna be seeing these effects take place in the PvP meta really quickly. Starting with Alice. So Alice is going to be a big deal in offense. We're going to have to start building for like Repel or Drain Pierce for Alice maybe? Or not, because how can you block 2 Die For Me's on turn 1? You might need to go to Intimidating Stance. And then that would make more Parvati teams or Ganesha teams more viable. It's going to be a weird change. And weird is good, right? Because hopefully that means different. We've been seeing the same Fizz DPS meta for so long. It's about time we see something else. And I hope that insta-kill meta, like straight up just insta-kill units, doesn't become that thing, because that would just be dumb. Because not even tanks would be able to do anything about that until Null Mortal comes around. So looking at these little other things, you can kind of just like pause on some of these. Fusion costs, whatever, doesn't really change in the long run, just easier for the beginning players, because it makes it cheaper earlier on. Tendency selectors. Now this is like the one of the 2, I guess, kind of bigger things that we have on here for the patch notes. Tendency selectors. Changing your AI. So there's some things that could work if the AI just allowed you to do it. Like having support and attack AI switched around. For example, I was thinking this because Yellow Mother Harlot is going to use Debilitate. Because it has a support AI. If you gave it an attack AI, then maybe you could put that on defense and it'll use Babylon Gauntlet instead of Debilitate. Same thing for, like, I guess Rama, because Rama has an attack AI, and Yellow Rama has Luster Candy, but you probably want to use Luster Candy instead of using Mabufudine or Brahmastra, for example. So, yeah, changing the attack AI to support could be good for that. And there's a lot of other things you can do. We can probably talk about that in the description. But yeah, I see some nice changes for tendency selectors. I feel like you should also get a tendency selector to use single target skills versus AoE skills, because sometimes a unit has both and they shouldn't be using both, you know what I mean? Maybe that'll be something they'll just change in another way, of course, because that's not really easy to change with AI. And I think that's a big change that we did need. Nice to have for now. I hope it's not going to be too expensive, and if it is, it's kind of random. If it was like I'm guessing by tendency selector that means you can choose, because it would be so weird if you couldn't choose that and you had to pick random between 3 and you had like a 50-50 to get what you wanted, and then you just get so frustrated when you didn't get the one that you actually did want. Yeah, so hopefully that means you can select it. Next up, we have the new demons added to Absolute Summon. This is huge because Guan Yu, super crazy physical attack unit. I mean, the second hit doesn't have any bad parts to it besides being able to miss. Right, yeah, sure. And it has Savage Leaves built in, so you know you're crit passing with this guy, can heal himself, give him back mana. Really nice Fizz unit. Possibly better than Masakado, but Masakado just has some other things going for him, like insta-kill and intimidating stance. Those are two like really nice things. Plus the counter, I mean, that's kind of there. I mean, whatever, right? Mother Harlot being put in there. That's one of the things that you can just make a really good prayer unit on. It does a lot of damage. It drains MP. It can be used for debuffing. It's just one of the best mages out there. A top tier mage. Daisojo, a top tier just because it has basically the mutant effect. It kind of counters charm by casting mute on your opponents, but it also can just remove debuffs and remove ailments from your team every turn, which is pretty crazy. So there's a lot of flexibility with what you can do on transferable skills with Daisojo because you have no weaknesses. That leaves room for things like barrier break or revive skills, and just overall just makes them really nice as a unit that can't get ailmented, especially in a meta that may become ailment. Now looking at the titles, I'm just going to allow you to just pause through this because honestly, they're just titles. You can get them by doing certain things. Not like it really matters that much, but if you want them, sure, go for it. Application icon, so when we get that 1.5 year anniversary thing, it's just going to change the logo, I think. And other changes, you can go ahead and take a look at that. Just minor things, and gems we're getting 100, which is, that's about normal, right? So, big changes to the skills here. I can see a lot of buffs to these characters, although it's kind of weird that they're not just directly buffing them, they're making us work for it. I guess that's just to keep us playing the game until they find something else to do. So, looks good. I'm really looking forward to Trumpeter, Alice, Seth, maybe even things like Thor could work out. Cert is a maybe in the lab. I'll have to see about that one. And I know people are looking at Lilith as some sort of hype unit, but I feel like it's not as good as the hype says. Anyways, you guys can leave your opinions and maybe ideas in the comment section below. Let us all know what you think. Let me know what you think too, because I'd like to see if there's anything that's crazy going on that I'm missing here. And there's a possibility that some of you guys' comments can just make the new meta. So let's try to build some ideas together. This has been Kiyodo. I'll see you on the next one. Later.